Hello, my name is Sabne Raznik, and you have found the channel here on YouTube where I do what I call mini readings. And the reason why I call it that is because usually I read just one poem, sometimes my work, sometimes somebody else's work, because I'm trying to get make this channel into a kind of an introduction to world poetry, which is kind of impossible. I know, but if you go back to the channel, it's been here since 2011, off and on, and you will find hopefully a tidbit that you like from a poet from another language. I read the poems in English because that's the language I'm most familiar with, and it is the language of the internet. But if you find that you like that poem, then I encourage you to go back and read the poem in its original language as well as whatever translation, because those are often two different things, really, and you can enjoy them side by side. And I try to always give the source of where I found the poem so that you can do that in one way or another. Well, some of my favorite sites are like Poetry International Web and Poets.org, the Academy of American Poets website, and PoetryFoundation.org are all good sites for world poetry, and just poetry in general, really. But today I'm going to share some of my own poetry because recently, when was that exactly? In the very end of 2024, possibly in November, I've forgotten, I released a new collection of poems, and this one is a micro chapbook, and it's for free on my website at sabneraznik.com, SABNERAZNIK.com. It's called Faller, and I'm recording this video on January 15th, 2025. I don't know when I'll get it put up, but just so you get time frame of when this is actually happening. And it's my first time recording on new equipment because I started having difficulty with the equipment that I was originally using with sound difficulties. So we'll see if this one works out better and you get better sound quality. Anyway, Fowler is kind of an unique collection. Getting good feedback from it, but interesting feedback at the same time. It's like I haven't had a bad word about it. I haven't heard a bad word about it, but it's been people. Excuse me. Excuse me. People are like, well, that's different, you know. So it's basically a collection of poems. Well, I'll read the foreword because the foreword is a trigger warning, and then I'll read a few poems from it. This is the only video I'm going to make to promote this collection on my YouTube channel because really the collection needs to be read in as one full thing to really get the idea of what it's about. Because I have tried to read, excuse me, I know I get on video and then my body starts doing all sorts of weird things. Welcome to the world of cerebral palsy. Bear with me. Anyway, because I have read like single poems out of it before, not on video, not in front of an audience, just to see, to myself out loud, just to see what it was like. And I'm like, it doesn't really work, does it? You kind of have to read the whole thing. And that's why I haven't put anything on this channel yet to promote it, because I was like, well, I'm not sure. You really can't do that, can you? But I am going to try to, I'll read, like I said, I'll read the foreword, and then I'm going to read more than one poem. I'm going to break my mini reading rule here. I'm going to read like 2 or 3, and then it'll be up to you whether you want to go to because you can access the collection for free on my website if you're interested in reading the whole thing. You may decide not to because it is a different kind of collection, and if you're sensitive in any way, that's why I have this forward. Okay, so this is the foreword to the collection. It's called Faller. Forward. Trigger warning. This will not be an easy book for anyone to read. It was not an easy book to write. It has been over 20 years since the awful events of 9/11/2001. There are now people alive who were not born yet or can't remember that day. History is beginning to have its way with that day. Consequently, some facts are now disputed. Among these is whether the 9/11 jumpers were real or myth. This, despite the famous falling man photo, which is considered the best photo by a journalist in the 21st century thus far. I read an article online that suggested even the surviving family members of these jumpers sometimes deny their existence because of the stigma surrounding suicide. In those circumstances, I would hesitate to call a deliberate choice to jump suicide. There was no other exit, and for many, death was certain regardless. It was a matter of choosing how to die, and that is why there is controversy around using the word jumper to describe these people. Honestly, everything surrounding these people and their stories are controversial, which is why I held on to these poems for a long time and thought I would never publish them at all. But having decided to do so, I was faced with the dilemma of what to call them. I wanted to avoid the negative connotations inherent in the word jumper as first responders use it. Also, jumper is not inclusive. It fails to consider that some that day were blown out of the buildings or did simply fall. Not all of them made that deliberate conscious choice, though it is believed that most of them did. In the end, I borrowed a word from the sport of steeplechasing, one that I feel is more appropriate, fully inclusive, and carries no stigma. Fallers. It was difficult to recover remains and identify the victims of 9/11. That was especially true of the fallers. I didn't say this in the foreword, but they are still identifying people to this day. That's why the official numbers keep going up even now. Anyway, that was especially true of the fallers because their bodies were buried by debris when the buildings collapsed. Sometimes there was nothing left to find but dust. Conservative estimates are that there were 100 of them. Others say the number is more than 200. I am in some ways still processing my personal traumas associated with that day, and that's what this is. It's not in any way a political statement, and I hope that I made that clear when I made one of my fictional fallers say it doesn't matter whose fault it is. Nor is it meant to cause pain to anyone who lost loved ones that day, nor is it meant to trigger anyone who battles depression and suicidal ideation. If that is true of you, I strongly suggest you put this book down now and read no more of it. I suppose I became especially interested in the fallers because I have cerebral palsy and therefore have spent my entire life falling. I am very familiar with the physics and experience of falling, even from some dangerous heights. Naturally, I am absolutely phobic of heights, but I am also keenly aware of the sometimes ridiculous and irrelevant thoughts one can have when one believes one is falling to one's death. It makes for a pitch-black sense of humor in the best of cases. I tried not to be funny here out of respect, but my experience does color these poems. I did a lot of research into cases of known documented fallers and their stories. I did not include any of that material. Mostly, my goal was to give these people voices. Each poem represents a different individual already in the act of falling. After a certain point, the project became too intense and the language too abrupt to continue. I guess I got too much in character, as happens to some method actors sometimes, and I had to stop. Basically, this book is a personal psychological purging. Read at your own risk. I guess it goes without saying that I couldn't find anybody willing to publish it either, so that's why it's on offer for free at my website. I did it myself. and that's okay. Um, I understand that it's an extremely sensitive issue still for those who can remember that day, and especially for those who had family members and loved ones and people they knew who were lost on that terrible day, or who maybe their family members survived, but who were there and just survived by the skin of their teeth, you know? I get it. I get it. Okay, so here's a few of the poems from, just 2 or 3 poems from the book, and then this will be it as far as me saying anything about it on YouTube. And but it's there. It's there to be read on the website, and there are reviews for the book on the website as well that several poets have been kind enough to allow me to put on the website. None of the poems in the book have titles. Like I said, they're meant to be what's that called? Stream of consciousness thoughts of a person while they're in the actual act of already falling. Like they've already lost contact with the ground or the floor that they were standing on. They've already lost contact with the building. They had 10 seconds, I think, from the top to the ground. I did all the research. So this is what I thought may have went through the mind of some of them as they fell. And because sometimes we think, as you fall, sometimes you think about silly things. I fell one time off of a bridge, and I fell about 6 feet into the creek. Didn't think I was going to live because I can't swim. And well, the area the area that I fell through between the bridge and the road was, I shouldn't have been able to fit through that, but I did somehow. I should have killed myself just trying to get through that little, but I fit through that somehow and fell the rest of the way down. Anyway, and as after impact, whenever I had the moment of, I'm in the creek, I'm in water. I remember thinking, I'm in water, and then I thought, I'm alive. And then my next thought was, where's my barrette? Because I was wearing a dress, and I had my hair up in a barrette. And for some reason, my first thought was, where did my barrette go? Because it wasn't in my hair anymore. I had taken quite the tumble. My friends who were with me, who saw me fall, said that I had bounced off the bank on my way down, and done a flip or two. And I ripped my pantyhose, and my dress was over my head, and it was a pretty serious fall, right? But then the first 3 thoughts that went through my mind was, water. I'm in water. I'm alive. Where's my barrette? So it's like, in moments like that, your brain isn't logical, and you don't think the things that you think you would think. I'm trying to explain, So it's like, your brain just pops out some really ridiculous stuff in those moments. Like, I had just survived something that I should not have survived, and I needed to go to the hospital, and seriously, because I did major damage to my neck and my back. To this day, I suffer from it. And I was worried about a barrette, that washed down the creek. Apparently, we never found it. But this is what I'm talking about, that your brain just like shorts out or something. And so, that's what the foreword was about. Like, read at your own risk. I did try to tone that idea down in the actual poems because I knew that I was going to be dealing with some people might read it who had loved ones who died or something, So it's like, well, yeah, but you don't want to offend people with the reality of what actually might have went through these people's heads as they were falling. So I tried to tone that down a little bit. And after a while, it got a little too intense, even for me as the writer, and I had to stop writing. Because, like I said in the foreword, like a method actor, I guess. And then I was like, I have to back away from this, right? So, but that's why I think in order to really understand this collection and really get the poetics even of the collection, you have to read it as a whole. Just taking like the individual little poems, you're going to be like, huh? But here's my little attempt to give you a preview. Anyway, here's one. I remember reading in school about the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, how some jumped to their death rather than burn, since there was no way out. At the time, I could not imagine making that decision. I don't imagine now. The world is beautiful at velocity, just color, like an abstract painting. Here's one that represents, the frivolous, I guess you could use the word frivolous, things that we think, oh, where's my beret? My skirt. I need to hold my skirt. Oh, I forgot to put that signed paper for the teacher in Sally's backpack this morning. Sally. See, it started out with that frivolous thought, right? And then it got deeper. I left a heap of dirty laundry next to the bed. I was late. Now that's what they'll find when they arrive to go through my things. What silly things we think about when the time for thinking is past. Here's a deeper one. This is one I've gotten a lot of feedback on from people who have read it. I was afraid to jump alone. The jacket of my waiter's uniform felt claustrophobic, so I threw it out first. Then a woman from table 3 took my hand, and we jumped together, wordlessly. I'll read just one more. Here's one, because this is something that really disturbed me when I came across it in my research. When you build a building that tall, and they're still building them that tall, they're building them taller, which is something I thought, after 9/11, I thought, well, surely they'll stop building buildings that tall. Surely they've learned their lesson now, because when something terrible happens, you cannot get out. It's impossible. But no, one of the ridiculous things that they had done ahead of time, the fire department, as part of, because especially a public building like that, fire drills, excuse me, I'm not 100% today. The weather, it's the middle of winter and the weather is doing weird things and it's affecting me because chronic illness. Anyway, I may have to wipe my nose several times. Anyway, during the regularly scheduled drills that you do, fire drill, whatever, the fire department had told people, if there's a fire, and that's what most people thought was going on, they had no idea what, most people inside the building had no idea the true nature of what was going on. They thought it was just a normal fire that they needed to evacuate from. They had no idea the true nature of what was going on until they were several blocks down the road walking and it was already unfolding, Anyway, they had told people if there's a fire in the building and you can't get out, maybe because the elevator, if there's a fire, the elevator is immediately shut off and you can't use an elevator. So you're supposed to take the stairs, but the way the World Trade Centers were built, there was no one elevator you could take all, or one, there was no one stairwell you could take all the way down. You had to go down a while and then cross to the different stairwell and go down. I think. Simulate it. I have been in the Empire State Building, and I know that's the way it was built. Now I'm forgetting my research, but that's also part of my condition now that the book is written and published. And I did write these poems years and years and years before I finally published them. I'm forgetting the research, but I think that was the case with the stairwells. But anyway, they had told people, if you can't get out because the elevator's shut down and the stairwells are blocked, go ahead and jump. They told people to jump because they told them the fire department will have bags or whatever to catch you. You have to trust that they're down there. You won't be able to see them because they're so far down, you won't be able to see it. It'll be so tiny to you that you won't be able to see it with your eyes. You just have to trust that they're there. But the fire department will have bags that will catch you. Like, not like trampolines, but kind of to catch you, and you have to trust that. They had told people that in the fire drills, okay? Another reason why we should take the idea of suicide off the table, because a lot of those people that jumped were trusting in what they had been told during the fire drills, that the fire department had things down there to catch them, which was not true. And the way physics works, there is no bag on Earth that would be able to catch them, because they would be coming down at such a velocity they'd just go through a bag. But that's what they had told people. Okay, so this is partly the fire department's fault, because they set people up for this. I'm going to get in trouble on YouTube for making this video anyway, so I'm just going to tell the truth. This is why I didn't monetize this channel, so I can just go ahead and not say what I wanted to without the bots being all over me. But they did that to people during their drills. They set them up for this. They told them, trust that it's there. Go ahead. You won't be able to see it. Go ahead and jump. So when something really did happen, that's what people did. And the bags were not there. They were not there. And even if they had been there, the laws of physics, after falling that far, they would have such velocity and momentum behind them that they would have went right through the bags anyway. The bags would not have helped them. But the fire department lied to them. Okay? So anyway, that's why I wrote this particular poem, and this will be the last one I read. And after this, I'll leave, it's up to your discretion whether you want to go to my website and read the rest of the collection. And we'll see how YouTube penalizes me for this video. The fire department will have tarps. You may not be able to see them up here, but they'll be there. That's what they said during drills. If there is no way down, you just have to trust. Well, I did. I do. I have to. But that's too much trust to give any human. Basic physics. Tarps would be useless from this height, wouldn't they? Too late now. God-sized trust. That's what this was. Craziest thing I've ever done. Leap of faith, they call it. God, do you have a name? Everybody does. Even the fish in the office aquarium have names. The janitor talks to them sometimes. Wish I knew your name. Why did no one tell me your name? Why did I never ask? It'd be so nice to talk to you right now. Like, really talk. You can't really talk to somebody if you don't know their name, can you? I don't care about the big existential questions now. I don't want to know why anymore. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. Anger, punishment, blame, they mean nothing to me. All that matters is a tarp. God, whatever your name is, do one last thing for me, please. One final thing, please. Promise me it won't hurt. So, yeah, that's what this collection is. It's not. It's a bumpy ride. But I have run across, like I said, one of my reasons for writing it is because I kept running across people who were saying that these jumpers didn't even exist. And I remember that day. I mean, I don't know anybody who was alive on that day who doesn't remember it. And one of the things I remember quite vividly of the news footage that day was those jumpers. And maybe I remember them so vividly because of my cerebral palsy, so I would have been like, oh my gosh, hyper focused on that. That would have really gotten my attention as somebody who has spent my life falling. You know, my life has been a high contact sport like American football, except I haven't had the luxury of all that safety equipment. And I don't have the luxury of retiring because I'm going to fall for my entire life. That's just what it is to have cerebral palsy, right? And so when I saw people jumping from the towers that day, that caught my attention, and I have never forgot it. And then you come across people now who say that never happened, that that's a myth that people made up just to make the day seem more terrible than it was. I was like, there is a museum now, I heard. I haven't been back to New York City since like 2005. I haven't had the funds, and now I don't think I have the health to do that kind of traveling. I tried to do some traveling in 2003, and I did manage it, but I learned a lot from that last effort. I went to Arkansas or something, and I learned a lot from that last effort that now traveling for me, it requires so much energy, and I have to pack so much more than I used to because my health is in such a different place than it was, that I think I may be beyond being able to go back to New York and things like that. I may be beyond being able to do major travel. I'm thinking I am. Not 100% sure on that, but I'm thinking I am. But I heard that there is a museum now on the property where the World Trade Center was. I know they rebuilt one of the buildings. I don't think they rebuilt the other. And they do have a memorial there. I saw the memorial when I was there in 2005, but they didn't have the museum yet. And I heard that there's a museum and that there is an exhibition in the museum for the fallers. They probably call them jumpers. Okay. And I think fallers is totally my word as of right now. But I was like, we need a new word for them, for all the reasons that I explained in my forward. And so it's like they were real, okay? That happened, and that was another reason why I felt the need to go ahead and publish these poems, because it's like you can't erase these people just because it's uncomfortable for you. I mean, every time you go back through history, and every time there has been a major fire in a really tall building, it's happened. Like I mentioned, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. Every time there has been a major fire in a skyscraper, it has happened. So you can't just sit there and say it didn't happen because it's uncomfortable for you. It happened. There was video of it. I don't know if that video has been confiscated and done away with, but there is video of it. There are photos of it. Apparently, there's a whole exhibit in that museum in New York City. It happened, and I think it would be wrong to say that it didn't, because those were human beings, those were lives. Human beings with stories, the stories of their lives behind those human beings, and people connected to them. Just as there is with any other human being. And it's wrong to erase them. It's a moral travesty to erase them just because the manner of their death makes you uncomfortable. And I think a major way to make a step forward towards making it less uncomfortable is to change the way we talk about them. So, okay, let's not call them jumpers, let's call them fallers, because a great many of them were not jumpers. They were literally fallers. Some of them literally just accidentally, because the whole side of the building was sheared off, so they would be walking around in the smoke and in the dark, and they couldn't see where they were going, and they would just literally walk off the side of the building. Woo! So that happened to some people. They were not all deliberate jumpers, and even the ones that were deliberate jumpers, it was just a matter of choosing which way to die, really. Or, like in that one case, the fire department had told people, you have to trust that there will be tarps and bags down there to catch you. Of course there wasn't. But they had lied to them during all the fire drills that they had done for as long as those buildings stood there. What, since the 70s? So for 20 years? Maybe 30, I don't know. I'm horrible at math, but I know that the towers were built in the 70s. So all the time, I'm laughing because it's horrible. All the time that those buildings had been there and that people had been working in the offices there, they had been telling them during fire drills that if anything happens, you just have to trust that a tarp will be there, go ahead and jump. So they set them up for that. So when something happened, what did they do? Exactly what they had been told so many times. They jumped. So a lot of them, it wasn't even a choice. They thought they were choosing life by jumping. So we need to change maybe the word that we use and stop thinking of it as a choice for suicide, because for a lot of them, it wasn't. For a lot of them, they thought the fire department is down there and going to save us because that's what they've been telling us. It's really a lot more complicated than the stigma would have you think. And it's a scenario that plays out over and over and over again every time there is a major disaster in a skyscraper. Just go back through history and look. I mentioned in the collection, I mentioned the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, but that's just two examples that it happens over and over and over and over. And mankind still hasn't learned from it. I'm all of the opinion that skyscrapers should not be built anymore because it has been proven multitudinous times that when something happens, people cannot safely get out of them. They are a safety hazard. They are death traps. But man's ego, Let's see if we can build the tallest building in the world and have it in our city. It's an ego thing. And it ends up costing lives and becoming a major, major thing. I mean, in the case of the Twin Towers, that was extraordinary because it was a terrorist attack. Most of the time, it's just like with the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, a random fire that becomes a tragedy, right? It's an accident that becomes a tragedy. because the building is poorly built, and it's too tall. I think maybe the World Trade Center was unique in that it was a terrorist attack, but it's not unique in how it played out as far as that goes. So it's like, how many more times do we need before we learn that these big tall buildings are not worth the ego trip? I don't know. I'm just one tiny little human on this planet, and I'm part indigenous too, so I doubt that might play into my feelings on that a little bit too. But so my little voice probably counts for nothing, but that's my opinion. It's like it's really way past time to stop building these things. But that's what the collection is, and it's not meant to be a political statement. It's not meant to. I've never really cared whose fault it is. It's always just been a really, really terrible thing. I think dwelling on trying to figure out whose fault something is, and then trying to seek justice, for one thing, you never get justice. I've learned that in my life, so that's pointless because you never get justice. Also, that constant desire to find out whose fault it is and to seek justice ends up being a destructive force, not it to the victim as much as to the other people too, or even more so. I have learned. So that's not what this collection is about either. It's just about the human stories of the people in the moment, and purging that psychological wound, I guess, that personal horror I felt as someone who's spent my entire life falling and will continue to fall until the day I die. Of seeing that, I guess, that's what the collection is. It's purging that personal psychological horror, which I'm sure that all of us who witnessed that event carry in one way or another. I'm sure we've all fixated on some particular detail of that day that's got stuck in our brain, and my generation especially has several of those. I remember when the Challenger blew up, and I have never been able to forget that. My school, I watched it live because everybody in the United States, all the kids in the United States, every classroom watched it live. But then in my school, I don't know if this was true across all the schools, but in my school, they were like, oh my gosh, this is history. So they played it on TV on repeat in the school for 2 weeks. We had to watch it on repeat while we went through the rest of our classes. It was like, it wasn't bad enough that we watched it live. They kept it playing in the background on repeat for 2 weeks. Like, this big momentous historical event. And so I've never forgotten it. So I've just given away my age too. But like, and so that, I was just like everybody else. I was like, space is so exciting. I'm so excited about space. And then after that, I was like, nope, more than happy to have my feet on the ground and never leave it. Thank you. You can keep space. I'm terrified by space. You can keep it. Nope. I like to look at the stars. I like to learn the constellations, and when there's a special event, like where I think this month that I'm filming this, which is January, like in a few well, it's already happening, where 7 planets of our solar system are going to line up, and it's already started, but it's going to complete like around the 21st or something. That happens. They're making a real big deal out of this, but that happens more often than they're making it sound like. But it's going to happen here real soon, and I like to like follow stuff like that. I got a picture of the moon with the Mars underneath it the other day, because the full moon, January's full moon with the Mars underneath it. Solar eclipses and stuff. I like to follow that stuff, but I want to keep my feet firmly on Earth. Thank you very much. That's where I belong. Because of the children mostly. So I'm sure that, like, with any traumatic event, there's like that any collective group of people have witnessed. There's like different details of that same event that different people fixate on and get stuck in their mind, and they have to work through that, right? And it would be a different detail for whichever person, and for me on 9/11 it was the fallers. So this collection was me working through that, and I wrote the poems years ago 10, 15, 20 years ago even. Oh, over a period of time. And then when I decided to publish them, I knew it would be difficult to find a publisher. So I wasn't surprised at all. And then finally I was like, well, I'm tired of having it just like sit around here in my face. I'll just put it out here. And it got better reviews than I expected. Because I thought, well, the material is so sensitive, I'm going to get terrible reviews. But it got better reviews than I expected. There have been a couple of, well, this is different. But that's as bad as it's gotten, is, well, this is different. And it's like, yes, it is my reply. Yes, it is. But that's why I put the trigger warning in there too, because I knew that it was going to be. And this will be the only video I ever make to feature any of the poems. And because I know it's such a sensitive issue, and I know more than likely YouTube is going to have a problem with it. Even though I'm not monetized, they might still try to bury this video. Because that's it. I mean, even the forward uses all kinds of words that you're not supposed to use on YouTube, right? The censorship bots are going to get it. But just to let you know, it's out there. If you're interested, you just go to my website, and if you click on the line where it says the title, there'll be the cover of the book, and it'll have the title, and then a brief summary of what it's about. If you click on the title itself, that'll take you through to the book, and then you can download it. So, if you want it. And that's our video for this month, and I hope that it wasn't too traumatizing. That's why I was so careful with that forward. It was like, read at your own risk, and here are all my reasons, and if you have these sensitivities, stop reading this now. I had one reviewer use the words, say that I was hypersensitive about it. Yes, but I think with a subject like this, maybe you can't be too sensitive. But there we go. And I hope that you will come back next month for next month's poem, whatever that will be. I haven't decided yet. Usually when I sit down and film, I film in blocks, 2 or 3 poems at a time. That's why a lot of times you'll see videos of me wearing the same thing for a while. It's because I've sat down and I've filmed those videos all at once, and then I release them over time. That way it helps me to keep the videos coming out on a schedule, because with my health, if I was to wait to film a video every time it's time to put one out, I may not be able to film one because I may not be feeling well enough. But by filming them in blocks and then releasing them over time, I've been able to keep a schedule better, which was my goal for 2024, and it's worked. But this time, I'm just going to make this one video, so I haven't decided what I'm going to do after this for the following month, so we'll see when we get there. And thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a fabulous month and that everything goes your way, right? Yes, yes. I want good things for everybody. I do. Good things for everybody. Thank you so much. And don't I go hunting till we meet again.